Mr. State Secretary, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Swedish Pavilion here at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh and to this session about a case study on Swedish ocean energy kites supporting the Faroe Islands to reach 100% renewable energy by 2030. My name is Anna Lindstedt. I'm the Swedish ambassador for the ocean and I will moderate this session. Concluding remarks will be given by Daniel Westlén, State Secretary to Romina Pourmokhtari, Sweden's new Minister for Climate and the Environment. The ocean covers 70% of the surface of the world, and many people depend on the ocean for their livelihoods. The ocean is the engine room of the climate system. Absorbing 90% of excess heat and a quarter of the CO2 we produce, the ocean has been a buffer against climate change. But tipping points are close. Ocean acidification, ocean warming, and ocean level rise risk both ecosystems and livelihoods. The ocean also provides opportunities to mitigate, adapt to, and build resilience to climate change while protecting ecosystems. And ocean-based solutions go beyond climate benefits. Food and nutrition, medicine, cultural values, transport, and energy from wind, waves, and tidal streams are important elements of the ocean economy. Like all island nations, the Faroe Islands are vulnerable to the effects of climate change, but also an example of the opportunities of the blue economy. When I visited the Faroe Islands a few weeks ago, I was struck not only by the stunning beauty of the islands, but also by the economic development and prosperity there. This is in large part thanks to the ocean economy. During my visit, I had a chance to learn about tidal energy, maybe the least well-known of all offshore technologies to generate power. I had the privilege to see and study one of the power kites of Minesto, harnessing energy from tidal streams in the Strait of Westmanna, a fishing village not far from the capital, Trondheim. Tidal energy is particularly suitable for a place like the Faroe Islands. Now we will hear from our distinguished panel, consisting of Dr. Martin Edlund, CEO of the company Minesto, Terji Nielsen, Head of Research and Development of the local energy company SEV, and Dr. Helma Maria Trondheim, researcher at SEV and holding a PhD on energy technology from Aalborg University and the University of the Faroe Islands. My first question goes to Terji. The Faroe Islands have ambitious climate goals and intends to become fossil-free already by 2030. What is the energy situation today, and how will the Faroe Islands reach 100% renewable energy by 2030? Terji, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Anna, and thank you for your kind invitation. I have prepared a few slides that might come online here in a few seconds. Well, if you look at the energy situation now, we can divide it broadly up to two different things: on sea and off and on land. As an energy company or utility, we're focusing mostly on the onshore power, heating, electricity, and transport and industry. We have rather high goals when it comes to renewable energy. We would like to become 100% green in terms of electricity generation by 2030 already, and carbon neutral by 2050. If we look at the electricity consumption in the Faroes, we see a growth in the normal electricity consumption, but we incentivize people to change their means of transport and heating to electricity as well. And then we will see the industry change their means of heating and process heating, etc., to renewable energy as well. So there's a growth that we need to cover with renewable energy by 2030 already. So our vision is clear: to green our electricity production by 2030. We do, however, have great natural resources with wind speeds exceeding 10 meters per second in various places. We have some sun, roughly 1,000 hours a year, but it is in the summertime when we're lacking wind and hydro. And then we have this very interesting resource in tidal energy, the tidal streams between the islands. And then a lot of rain, quite a lot. 1,300 millimeters a year, but in various places exceeding 3,000 millimeters. So it's quite a lot. If you look at the complementary of the resources, we have a lot of wind and rain in the winter months, but not so much in the summer. But that's actually where the sun is there. And then, not linked to the weather, only linked to the phase of the moon, we have tidal energy as a constant resource throughout the year. However, having visions is nothing without execution plans, and there's a lot of ongoing research and execution in the islands. Only last year we have tripled the wind energy in the Faroe Islands. We have a lot of ongoing research in the Minesto COP27 in Vestmannarsund. We have, in order to gap the the energy gap in the different weeks, we are in a tendering process for a big pumped hydro as well, and battery systems for short-term storage. So there's a lot of ongoing projects in the Faroe Islands today. So I think that's a broad picture of the energy situation today.
Thank you very much, Terji. Very interesting and encouraging. This is an inspiration and example to the world, I must say. So the following question is to Martin. How does the technology of Minesto work?
Yes, what we do is that we try to really adopt the technology to the nature of tidal currents and ocean currents. And what's important it is to really be able to convert the energy from lower flows. There are a few rare spots in the world with hotspots, we may call them, with really, really high flows. But if we want to make tidal energy a part of the global energy mix with impact, we need to reach into the lower flows. And that is what we have succeeded with using a principle where we fly a kite in an H-shaped trajectory to sweep a large cross-section of the ocean to collect energy from the whole trajectory of the system moving. It's tethered to the seabed, so it's a lifting force on the wing that propels it through the water. And the onboard turbine will then experience a relative through flow that is significantly higher than what the actual ocean current is moving. And we, all of us, know that if we are turbine engineers, we would know that there is even a cubic relationship between the speed through the turbine and how much energy you get out. So that's a little bit of the principle. What you see here on the screen is footages from the beautiful Faroe Islands. This is our main first installation environment. And you see Minesto personnel together with local suppliers working on installation. What you see here is not in production, it's when we tow it out to site. So there are a lot of aspects of reducing cost of energy, not the least related to marine logistics and the size and weight of the systems that you deploy. We are now grid connected, and this is the second generation of systems we're trying in the Faroes. And we are, since this autumn, really, really proud of the performance. And the electricity is fed into Terji's and Sev's grid. So even if we're just talking about 100 kilowatt machine at the moment. The plans are really ambitious, and I think what we see is that we're focusing now on a 10 megawatt build out and then beyond that. And I think that maybe we should talk a little bit more as we move on why the Faroe Islands and why this is a very, very interesting place to be to really showcase and demonstrate new renewable solutions. I think it's very much related to the political ambition of being 100% renewable, as you said. And I guess we will come back to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. It all seems so simple and yet so smart. Impressive. So now I turn to Helma Maria. What scientific conclusions can we draw from the potential of tidal stream as a new energy source?
Yes. In my PhD, the main motivation was this vision to go 100 by 2030. And I had to analyze what is the best expansion plan towards 2030 in the Faroe Islands. And when I did this study, I investigated what impact different technologies have on the system. And at this point, SEV and Minesto had already started their collaboration. So I decided to take Minesto's technology into consideration in this expansion planning study. And so I got some information about the performance of the technology and cost estimates. And then I did some optimization on an economic optimization to see what impact it does have. And my results showed that if Minesto's technology will become a feasible competitor, we can lower the storage capacity needed in 2030 by 75%. In addition to that, we can also lower the overall generation capacity by 18%. So that makes a lot of difference. And we can also say that tidal energy could, in 2030, provide 40–50% of the total energy consumption in the Faroe Islands. And then you might ask, why is this so interesting in the Faroe Islands? There are different things that matter here. One thing is, as Terji showed, the resource is constant all over the year. But you have these cycles when the tide shifts, where you have no energy or no flow. But this does not happen at the same time in each strait between the islands and the Faroe Islands. So if you place these kites at different locations, then you can actually get a baseload production from tidal energy. So overall, it could become a game changer in the expansion of the Faroese power system towards 2030.
Very interesting, fascinating. Thank you very much. A follow-up question on that. So you're saying that by expanding the installations to different parts of the islands, you can actually have predictable energy basically the whole time. It's very interesting.
Yes. Yeah, because tidal energy is 100% predictable. So that's a great advantage with the technology itself, compared to wind energy and solar and such.
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting. So a little bit more in depth, coming back to the technology as such, how can this unlock the tidal energy and how can it contribute to the green transition of the Faroe Islands? We've already touched upon it, but maybe a little bit more in depth. Martin, you want to start, or should we return to Terji?
So, okay, yeah. The real value to bring here is actually to lower the total cost of the complete energy transition. There are solutions of storage and we can use a lot of complementary sources. But when we deliver a new tidal stream technology at the cost levels that we believe we have ahead of us, the total system costs of electricity in the Faroes for the consumers will be lower than if we would go all in to build, let's say, 80% wind and complementary seasonal storage. So I think that's the main reason why also a utility that normally, I mean, work with technologies that are more mature than ours, that there is this opportunity into it. And it's also a matter of the conditions being almost perfect for a first-of-a-kind installation. The technology performance will improve with generations, in normal S-curve transitions that all technologies basically go through. And then it's so important that you start where conditions are really good. We're in the middle of the Atlantic, but there are sheltered straits. So marine operations has nice operating windows because we don't expose to the Atlantic fully. And it's also so that the national grid that SEV is providing is covering almost all of those islands where the straits are, and there are a lot of connection points nearby where we can produce. So the total system costs will be lower than for an average location. So that combined with let's say, an ambition that I think it's a driver of it, the 100% renewable ambition. Because as long as you say that we want to go half in or we're going to go 80%, then you can always find an excuse to bring in fossils and do that at a lower cost. So that's also what's been sort of our decision criteria to move into this context. Then, of course, it's a highly technically advanced society, which makes it easier with a grid that is more intelligent in most islands around the world. With even if it's small scale, a lot of good port infrastructure, and also very, very strong local suppliers on the marine operations side. So those are a few of the aspects I think I want to bring forward.
To add a little bit, and also like a follow-up question, how does this energy production affect, if at all, other activities like ships coming in, fishing, people want to go swimming? Can all those activities exist at the same time?
Actually, the kite is flying 8 meters below the surface, so you can actually, with a boat on top of that, but you cannot fish there, obviously, and big ships are not allowed to sail there. And it's marked on all the sea charts, so people are aware. And just to elaborate a bit on what Martin just said, there is the environmental impact taken into consideration as well, because as Helma said, if we can lower the need of building big reservoirs by 70%, it has a huge benefit to the environment, because nothing is much more devastating than building big dams in such beautiful islands, I would say.
Yeah, that's interesting. And also, I mean, I'm not an energy expert. The state secretary is, so he will come up with some very intelligent and insightful remarks when he gives his concluding remarks. But if I understand it correctly, this kite is fairly lightweight. And it's not a big installation that you have a big infrastructure installation that you have to attach and potentially would then harm the ecosystems.
That is actually, we have two key benefits of this kite in particular. First of all, it's designed for low flow. We have low flow speeds in the Faroe Islands. That's one critical point that this kite is addressing, but also the light weight of the system, so we can handle it by domestic vessels. That's extremely important as well in this maturing process of the kite.
I mean, as I said in my introduction, the Faroe Islands have prospered thanks to the ocean economy. You have, of course, fishing, but you also have a lot of fish farms. Can you tell me a little bit about the connection between the need for energy of the fishing industry and the other, the aquaculture there, linked to this technology?
I would say, first of all, this vision of becoming 100% green by 2030 and then carbon neutral by 2050, it's a vision for all of us, the government and SEV, the utility as well as the industry. But what we see is now the industry, and the salmon industry maybe in particular, is pushing for green energy. So it put a lot of pressure on us to provide green electricity to their industry. Yeah. So I think all in all, it goes up to yeah. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And you said earlier that you also export fish to really high-level markets in many places of the world, and so of course, if you can market this as sustainably produced, also in terms of renewable energy, it's
absolutely. It's a critical thing for the salmon industry to become green as soon as possible.
Yeah. Interesting. Helma Maria, you want maybe to add a little bit from your point of view on the technology, and I mean, it's interesting the research you have conducted, and also I don't know if I mean, can really recommend a visit to the Faroe Islands. It's beautiful. There's so much to see, and the weather shifts. I mean, you have rain and you have sun and you have rainbows, and but you also have. I mean, it's a small place, only about 50,000 inhabitants, right? But you have managed to prosper, and you also have a university. You have studied at, in spite of being a tiny population, you have a university. So where you have studied, and so both there and at Aalborg University, where you have your PhD from.
Yeah, it is a very modern society, even though it's an island far away from everything. But with regards to technology, as Terji and Martin both mentioned, it is very suitable for the Faroe Islands because it has low flow, or produces at low flow. And when I say that we could reduce the storage capacity by 70%, 75% actually, this means we don't need the big disbuilt dams, and we don't need as many wind farms, which are more of a visual impact than the tides, tidal kites, because they are in the ocean. So that's also a great benefit of the technology itself, I'd say.
What do the people of the Faroe Islands think of this very special technology? Is there a big debate about your energy system and what to go for? I mean, in Sweden we have a debate about the wind energy, and especially about the offshore wind. Do you have a similar debate, and do people have any opinions about this tidal energy, the kites? Are they well known?
I think actually that people in the Faroe Islands are very aware of the energy situation and interested in renewable energy, and also tidal energy has gained a lot of attention in the Faroe Islands over a long time, and maybe Terji can talk more about former projects that have been investigated in the Faroe Islands or planned before.
But I think just to mention that we are obliged to do environmental impact studies and have all the necessary permits in place. So that's a requirement. Yeah, we have been looking into tidal energy for quite some years. In the beginning, maybe big steel structures like a wind turbine on the seabed, weighing maybe up to 1,200 ton each turbine. Really difficult for us to maneuver in when at a technological readiness level so low, because you have to retrieve it every once in a while. So I think that's one of the key, as I mentioned already, that one of the key benefits of these technologies is that it's maneuverable for us with the ships and vessels we have already in the Faroe Islands.
Interesting. Martin, you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to comment a little bit on scale here. If you have a society with 50,000 people, but where you have sort of government, all institutions in place, it creates an environment with an opportunity to make decisions faster than in larger countries and structures, and also that to create awareness of change, and when you implement new stuff, it's also much easier. So I think that the scale here is to our advantage to move faster into to build out and prove technologies. Also to be able to share resources that already are in place locally. So I mean, since the Faroes has such a strong economic value related to the sea, I mean, you also do a lot of ocean research. So ocean research vessels and institutes are available locally, and they already have a lot of knowledge built up on all those fjords and the environment, and they have modern research vessels that they're sailing by there anyway, so we can access data and get the processes going quicker in any other market where we are active today. So the scale is to the advantage. So sometimes I even point at the Faroe Islands as sort of a laboratory for the world, in a sense, to reach net zero generation. You need a mix. You can't do just like Norway to let sort of the hydro do the job for you completely. So you need to work on intelligent grids, you need to work on storage, you need to change consumer behaviors. And I think this creates an environment that is an actionable laboratory. And for us, it's of course a huge advantage to be a part of that.
Fascinating. Do you get a lot of visitors? I mean, this would be, like you said, a laboratory, so maybe you invite people from all over the world to come and have a look at the kites and of course, the uniqueness of your culture and on the islands, but also to study your energy system.
Because of Minesto, but definitely also because of the transformation we're in the process of. So there's a lot of attention gained by what we're doing in the Faroe Islands. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said before, go and visit. I know you already have a lot of tourists, but I'm sure you can accommodate because, I mean, you have a lot of space, so it's really a place to visit. I think we still have a little bit of time. Is there anything you want to add from your side, or should we maybe invite if there are questions from the audience, if before inviting the State Secretary to give his concluding remarks? I know State Secretary has a lot to say, so we need to leave some time, but I think we might have time for some questions if there is anyone here. I know that some of you listen in on the previous session with Minesto, so maybe you already have the answer to all your questions. Crystal clear. But I was wondering, because of course this is an example, a very suitable environment. If you compare to like other island states or other markets where you can, where you have a long coastline and maybe a bigger population, what would you say? I mean, you touched upon some of the challenges in a different kind of setting, but maybe you have additional thoughts on that, Martin?
I mean, there are a lot of coastlines and island nations around the world where this is exploitable. I mean, we're working with the Welsh government on a site in North Wales at the same scale of this, and the UK is the European market that is the largest for us, but the real huge build-out market is Southeast Asia, Philippines, Indonesia, Taiwan, and all the island nations in between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. But there we will face a lot of challenges on a scale above what we're facing together with our partners in the Faroes. Yeah. So we better do a quick build out in the Faroes, get it stable, and then at the same time work on the local challenges in other environments.
So this is the easy part now, working with the Faroe Islands. And
It's very, very favorable conditions to exploit the tides in between the islands in the Faroes. Yeah.
But if I understand it correctly, it works wherever you have tidal streams or ocean currents. I mean, even along the coast of Africa, for instance.
Oh yes, the Agulhas current on the African east coast, Chile, Argentina, Canada is a big market. Florida coastline for currents. Japan has a very, very strong potential. Taiwan as well, and then the whole sort of northern sphere of the globe, Australia as well. So basically all coastlines has a potential.
Yeah, fascinating. There's only one drawback that I can see. It's that we don't have the right conditions in Sweden.
Correct. We have a very long coastline, but jokingly I say that unfortunately Denmark is in the way. So that means that the flow will not reach the Swedish coastline in the same way as if we would have sort of removed Denmark. But as our neighbors and friends, I think we should be very careful with going in that direction. Yeah,
that's a pity. But on the other hand, I mean, we're happy that we can, by developing this Swedish technology, contribute to increased climate ambition and lower emissions in all those places around the world. So this is a perfect example of where exports from Sweden will benefit the whole world. We'll have a global climate benefit. Fascinating. Thank you so much. And last but not least, I'm happy to introduce the very new State Secretary for Climate and the Environment, Dr. Daniel Westlén. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you. So, thank you all for an inspiring session. Moving towards an energy system without fossil fuels is, I would say, the cornerstone of the climate ambition and the climate work. I really want to congratulate the Faroe Islands for their ambitious targets, and it seems to me now, after listening, that you're actually within reach. In becoming fossil-free, the ocean indeed represents a huge opportunity. It's been encouraging for me to learn more about this innovative and smart technology, which really expands the potential of harvesting energy from the ocean. Also very interesting to hear about the specific conditions about the Faroe Islands. And being a Nordic citizen, I must admit that I didn't know all of this. That was some news to me that was really interesting. This is an example of a technology which can enable small island states to move towards a climate neutral energy system in a relatively short time span. These investments are obviously scalable, thus reducing the financial risk, which is often blocking carbon neutral projects, which may be impossible due to their scale. But here we can build it out gradually and thereby making it possible. Tidal energy is especially suitable for island states with tidal streams, obviously, especially when, as in the Faroe Islands, there is a small but still a potential for dispatchable hydro capacity. Considering the vulnerability of small island developing states where fossil energy for many years have been the dominating source of energy, the invention and evolution of this technology gives hope. Also, from a climate justice perspective, this can be part of an important development. I see a potential for ocean energy in general, and specifically the Minesto technology, not only to energize small island states, but also wherever there are tidal streams. We heard many examples here in the end. The technology should be able to scale up and become an integral part of the energy system also in bigger markets. As Martin explained, I think it's important to point out the unique selling point of this technology, where the predictability gives us an opportunity to lower system costs. System costs are also often forgotten when we discuss sources of energy, where we tend to focus on the cost of the energy production itself. But as both of you explained, or all three of you were actually discussing. The system cost is often the system cost will be the dominating driver of the energy system, and therefore this predictability of the technology here is very important. Predictability, which is often the drawback of the weather-dependent sources of fossil-free energy. Anyway, I find this is a pioneering technology to truly pioneer the possible. Thank you so much for an interesting panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Daniel Westlén, for your very insightful words. And as you said, this is really an example of where we can pioneer the possible, pioneer the fossil-free. Thank you all for listening.